Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Joseph Parker's camp is at it again, dredging up his somewhat controversial loss to Dillian Whyte to call for a rematch, even suggesting Whyte is scared of Joseph Parker. So I'll get to the statements from Parker's promoter David Higgins and then on to a few thoughts, because there is more going on here than meets the eye. So the piece by Sky Sports from the UK says Higgins believes a rematch with the New Zealander should have been more seriously considered after Whyte overcame a last round knockdown to complete a points win in July. Higgins says, what does that say about Whyte? He says it's interesting that he didn't mention Joseph Parker's name. To me that says they are running the other way, knowing that without officiating errors Parker would have overcome and beaten him. To me, that's an admission that he's scared of Joseph Parker. Dillian Whyte knows there's unfinished business with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker knows there's unfinished business with Dillian Whyte. Every boxing fan in the world knows there's unfinished business. Do you know what? I think Dillian Whyte does have some intelligence and dignity, so I don't think he would shy away from proving that he can beat Joseph Parker decisively. If Anthony Joshua does end up fighting the winner of Fury Wilder, then there would be some questions asked of Dillian Whyte. Does he want to set the record straight by going for a decisive victory against Parker? It's a public challenge to Dillian Whyte to admit that an error by British officials benefited him, and that he did not win decisively. New Zealand fans would respect him if he acknowledged that, and being an intelligent man of dignity, we should set up the rematch on the same terms sooner rather than later. David Higgins' statements to Sky Sports. So there certainly is quite a bit to unpack there, but before I really get into the sort of meat of his comments, just, I want to throw something out there just to consider for the context of what Higgins is saying. Just ask yourself, why is David Higgins saying all this now? Months after his fighter lost, months after they said they would not appeal the loss, months after they said they were moving on. And it's also coming in the middle of Parker's current training camp for his scheduled December 15th fight against Alexander Flores. And the simple answer, I believe, is profile. Parker has largely drifted off the map in recent months following his second consecutive loss. And I don't believe fan interest is anywhere near what it once was for Parker. Even in New Zealand, casual interest has waned to some degree. People I know, friends, family, work colleagues, etc., they would previously talk to me about upcoming Parker fights once they were announced. I haven't had one person that I would deem as a casual supporter talk to me about Parker's upcoming fight with Alexander Flores. I'm sure others will have similar experiences. Or not experiences, because they haven't been happening and the questions aren't being asked. So what happens when Higgins makes these comments to Sky Sports in the United Kingdom is it filters back. It's widely picked up in New Zealand, gets column inches, all the outlets pick it up. So it ends up serving a dual purpose. It keeps Parker's name out there internationally, reminds fans that he's still a factor in the division. But it's also an easy way to remind New Zealand fans that he's got an upcoming fight. It could lead to some interest in buying the pay-per-view at $40 or convince someone to buy a ticket to the event. And the live gate, it's important. The Horncastle Arena in Christchurch, it can seat thousands of people. Last time Parker fought there in 2016, there was more than 5,000 in attendance to see him knock out an overmatched journeyman, Solomon Hamono, who was 40 at the time. So they will again be trying to replicate that success that they've had previously. And I believe part of the reason that they've gone to Christchurch is because it's a city where Parker hasn't fought much in, and there will be some novelty for locals in the wider area to come out for a big night of boxing. I mean, even if Parker is coming off 2 losses, and even if he is matched with a guy that he is expected to beat handily. But like I've said previously, this event will be a bit of a litmus test for Parker's popularity to some extent. If the attendance is down and the pay-per-view numbers are down, then we may not see Parker much, if at all, in New Zealand again until the tail end of his career. Because if they can't milk the New Zealand pay-per-view market to the extent that they once did, they'll look for paydays offshore. It's a commercial reality. I did a quick check on ticket availability for this event at the Horncastle Arena, and there's still tickets available in over 20 sections, and that's in addition to the hospitality corporate packages that are on offer. So it'll be interesting to see on the night what the actual attendance is. Is it going to be a near full house? But getting back to some of the substance of Higgins' comments about Whyte. The cold reality is, Joseph Parker needs Dillian Whyte a lot more than Dillian Whyte needs Joseph Parker. Sure, the accidental head clash was a factor in that fight, but also a factor in the fight was Parker didn't do enough in some key rounds through the middle of the fight. He drifted, he was low volume, he let Whyte dictate the pace and the action. Ultimately, he left his run too late, and he didn't stop Dillian Whyte. We've heard from the Parker team that they've taken confidence that, Parker almost knocked out Dillian Whyte, and if the fight was 30 seconds longer, he would have won. But the reality is, it wasn't 30 seconds longer, and he didn't win. But he could have won if he'd have done more in some of the earlier rounds, even in spite of the knockdowns. And Mark Tibbs, Dillian Whyte's trainer, shortly after the fight, he said that they'd beaten Parker, there was no need for a rematch, that they'd be moving on. And he said similar things after the Derek Chisora fight in 2016. So what David Higgins is really trying to do here is goad Whyte back into a fight, try get under his skin with comments like, what does that say about Whyte? They are running the other way. That's an admission that he's scared of Joseph Parker. Every boxing fan in the world knows there's unfinished business. Is there unfinished business? Well, maybe. There probably is some unfinished business. But do we need to see that fight again right now? Sooner rather than later as Higgins wants? Probably not. I wouldn't mind seeing it again, but I don't have a burning desire to see it immediately. And at the same time, we've kind of got this whole sort of been there, done that, got the postcard feeling about it too. Whyte scraped through in a dramatic fight and he's moved on. And as it is, he's likely going to be the opponent for Anthony Joshua in April. So any talk of rematches, it would be on hold until at least we know a Joshua opponent is confirmed. But if Whyte doesn't face Joshua, I'd rather see him in some other fights. I'm still really interested to see him face Luis Ortiz, or even Dominic Breazeale. The Parker rematch, it's always going to be there, just as the Chisora rematch has been. But if they do fight again, and Whyte still hasn't taken any losses since having beaten Parker, then Higgins can forget about his whole sort of, same terms, deal that he wants. Parker would definitely need to take a haircut on his end. But if it ends up being the best fight available money-wise to be made for Whyte's promoter Eddie Hearn, then a rematch will happen, but I don't think it happens for a year or 18 months at the earliest. But I do think we will see Parker in the UK again soon. And it is likely he's going to feature on some form of Eddie Hearn event, be that a Matchroom card in the UK, or it's possible he may end up fighting on DAZN in the United States. The money that he can get for a purse, that's going to dictate what they do with him. But a Whyte rematch, I'm not convinced that it's happening in the short term, because especially if Whyte has other options, and that those other options may include Anthony Joshua or fights with other guys in the division. And the reality is Parker needs to get past Alexander Flores first, and the manner of that performance could well dictate some of what's next for Joseph Parker. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.
If you want even more boxing content, come and join me on Patreon.
Every week on a Sunday, I drop a new video on something topical or thought-provoking from the heavyweight division, ranging from rankings, the business of boxing, the false economy of deluded fanboys, the twists and turns in the division, to assessments of fighters and their statements. I hope to see you there, and for more information go to patreon.com/boxing squared. The address is on screen now.